I honestly believe that transformation can happen in an instant. Even whatever it is that you're starting or whatever you're doing, if you were to go all in on it, you would be able to get results. It may not necessarily be the 100% result that you want, but you will get results. And then from those results, you will take different actions and create different results until you get to the result that you want. But the longer that you do not take action, the longer that the actions don't happen, that's what creates a lot of the complexity, because you don't have the, like, you're not creating the experience and you're not being the person. And so you're practicing in action being someone that you don't want to be. And so that's what you're gaining the efficiencies in. And that's what you're gaining more and more confirmation bias in. And so it seems hard, but it's not hard. The steps are actually really simple. This is what I want to do. These are the steps that I have to take. This is me taking the steps.
Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to click the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you get notified when the next video comes out. It only takes 2 seconds to make 2 clicks. So let's do it. Let's get back to the video.
Hello, Fearless Freedom Tribe. It's Dr. G, and we are back with another episode of the Fearless Freedom with Dr. G podcast. Today, we have none other than Britney Glass, and she's going to talk to us about herself, all of the incredible things she's up to, and I am dying to hear the story about those amazing glasses.
That's actually a really good story. So we will talk about that as I'm talking about my journey and story, because they actually play a little role in my life in helping me be the person that I actually want to show up as.
Awesome. Yeah, we're dying to hear about you and what you're up to and all of that good stuff.
Yes. Well, my name is Britney Glass. I hail from New Jersey, actually. I've lived a couple of places throughout the U.S. and could not wait to be back in the tri-state area and all of the New York energy. However, I hate the city, so New Jersey's just close enough for me to get the dose of city energy without actually having to live in the city. And so I have lived in New Jersey, or I was born and raised in New Jersey, and just couldn't get enough. So I'm back here. And I currently am an interior designer and life coach, which started as an accountant 12 years ago. So when I tell people, they normally are completely perplexed, because I think people have an idea of expectation of what they believe an accountant would look and act like. And when I tell people that I'm probably the biggest geek in the world, they don't really believe me. But that's how I started. I like to say 12 years ago, I was client zero. And so I had really no idea what I wanted to be doing for a living or career-wise in high school, but I knew that I was really good at math. And so I didn't have anyone to help me choose my career. And so I just Googled majors that were associated with math and how much money they made. And then I came across accounting, and I was like, okay, this sounds like they make enough money and it's easy enough to do. And so I signed up, and then to come to find out, accounting really isn't about math. So that was that. But really excelled very highly in college, graduated summa cum laude, and
Nice.
got this really great job that a lot of people really want, and it's highly competitive. And then once I got there, and I'm like, hey, I've realized this dream, it really wasn't my dream. And so I was very, very disappointed going into the real world or becoming an adult and realizing that it wasn't the way that we see in the movies and on TV, and that life is not rainbows, daisies, and butterflies. But I actually refuse to accept that. And I was like, I don't like this life at all. There has to be something different. Let me go figure it out. It has to be on the internet somewhere. And so I went to the internet, I went to Google to find out how to become wealthy, because I really knew I wanted to quit that job. I wasn't happy. I was constantly just second guessing myself, always having to filter myself, just being a woman of color in a really big corporate environment. At that time, there was no diversity, equity, and inclusion. It wasn't like you could really express that something was going wrong with you and be supported in that. And so I just chose to change my environment, which is actually one of the things that I help my clients to do as an interior designer and life coach. Not that you have to change your career or anything, but just really making sure that you are in a space where you feel aligned and connected, and saying no to anything that does not feel that way. And so Google told me that in order to become wealthy, real estate would be the best way to do that. And so I started investing in real estate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one way. I don't know if it's the best way, but okay. All right.
Yes. So I started investing in real estate. I was like, okay, I'm going to be a real estate investor. And that is actually how I found interior design. So as I started to rent out properties and flip properties, I built a relationship with a contractor, and he was like, oh, you're really good at this. You should be an interior designer. And I had no idea what that meant either. And so I had to go back to the internet to give me the context of what an interior designer was. And in my brain, it translated to, I can create fabulous stuff and get paid and be fabulous. And that sounded like rainbows, daisies, and butterflies to me. So I signed up.
Okay. There you go.
And to kind of bring that story full circle, I think, no matter what it is that you choose to do, there's always a lot of discomfort involved. And the same was the case for me building a business and going through all of the challenges and experiences and development that you need in order to sustain a business over a period, a profitable business over a period of time, and just become the person that's not necessarily in this one role. Like, we're kind of brought up to just be one specific thing, right? And so as a business owner, you are a lot of different things in the very beginning. And you're not really that great at any of them.
Nope.
So I saw myself doing some really big things, from the real estate investing to starting a business and to just like being able to achieve highly, but I did not feel that great. Like, so I was doing all of these things and it seemed to be working, but I did not like how I felt after having to negotiate for 3 hours and feel like I had to prove my worth, or really trying to manage my emotions in rooms where I felt like things were happening to me, where I felt like I was a victim. That may not have been true at all, knowing what I know now, right? But just really trying to figure out who I was and be confident in that. And it really felt like it was me against the world. And so I was very uncomfortable and I wasn't that happy. And I decided I did not want to feel that way anymore. And one thing about me is I've never really thought twice about making decisions. Like, once I decide I want to do something, it's kind of like, hey, what's the next action? And so for me, it was kind of like, okay, clearly something's going on with my emotions. Let me figure out how to manage them. And that led me down this rabbit hole, which is normally what I do for everything. It's just researching and learning, adapting, executing, and implementing things in my own life, testing it out. And as I was doing that and seeing the results of that, I could be a little bit more present, and I could be present enough to also see some of those things in my clients that I was working with at the time, just as an interior designer. But I was encountering women who were, really trying to figure out if the path that they were on was their path, whether or not they had a whole bunch of money or a really big job or a really rich husband. Like, they were asking the same questions behind closed doors. They were asking me, well, why did you do this? And what would you do if you were in this situation? And how do I do X, Y, and Z so that I can create more money for my household or have more impact in all of these things? And so I had a little light bulb moment where I was like, wait a minute, these women are not just here because they want to change their environment. They're here because they want to experience something something different and be something different. And so that's where the life coaching piece ties into the interior design. So we are designing your entire life in the reflection of what you want to be and who you want to be and what you want to experience. And I kind of sum that up by saying from the inside out.
Nice. Love it. Love it. No, that's great. And I
Thank
love how it went from, hey, I'm really good at something. Let me just see what I could do with this skill to, oh, okay, this is what it is. That's not what I thought it was. Okay, well, now it's time to figure something else out. Oh, how can I like be wealthy? Oh, maybe real estate. And then you try that. And then you're like in there and you're doing your thing. And then you discover something else that you're good at. And then you get directed towards this current form. And so now tell me, was there any fear involved when the moment you realized that accounting was not what you thought it was, and you had all the things, you had all the accoutrements, right? You had like that coveted position, you had all the things attached there. And then now it's like, okay, what
Yes,
next? Right. How
absolutely.
did you do? I mean, you said that you're really good at like seeing something and then taking action, which is huge. But what did you feel before that you did that?
Oh, wow. So that's a good question. And it actually gave me a little flashback that, sometimes you only have access to certain memories. It gets triggered by something. I remember the fear and I remember the thoughts that I was having, just really like, you're going to leave these degrees behind. I had all the degrees and the licenses and the certifications. You're going to leave all of this stuff behind for something that you've never done before. My mom passed away 2 weeks before I graduated from college.
Oh
And
my
a lot
gosh.
of that clutter was about, oh my God, what would my mom think? Right. Because when she left, I was on this trajectory. And I remember
Right.
her being so happy when I got that job for that company. Because it was a really tough road. Like, and the interview process was super intense. And I remember how happy she was and how proud she was. And so I think that also kind of allowed for me to have a little bit of flexibility because oftentimes a lot of our identity is connected to our household or
Oh yeah.
whoever develops us, right? Whoever raises us. And so
Hmm.
they have expectations. And from a very early age, we start making decisions about our lives based on these people's expectations. And of course, they have our best interests in mind, but they aren't necessarily going to be the ones who can map our lives for us.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and so I did feel those fears. And I remember it was Mother's Day weekend and my family met for brunch just to celebrate my mom. And we were talking. And I remember telling my brother and his wife and my aunt who was sitting there that I was going to quit my job.
What was the reaction? What was the
They
reaction?
basically all looked at me like I was crazy. And there were so many questions and questions that I did not know the answers to. I did not know how I was going to do it, but I had a bigger fear.
Okay.
And that actually is what propelled me. Fear propelled me. I had a bigger fear. My biggest fear was staying in the life that I was in. My biggest fear that would be my life for the rest of my life.
I
My biggest
see.
fear was to even thinking about my mom and thinking about, her following a straight and narrow path and doing all the things right and still life happening to her, passing away from secondhand lung cancer at 43 years old, right? And
Wow,
so
that's young.
yes.
Okay.
And so when I thought about, like, I feared that more than I feared what anybody else could possibly think about me or failing. And that is what really motivated me to just take action because anything just felt better than where I was. And
Wow.
it was, I guess it would have been okay. It's okay for other people, right? Other people take the same path that I took, and other people can't loved or like really looked forward to being in the position that I was in, but it didn't feel good for me. It wasn't for me. And so I wanted to create something that felt like me.
It takes a lot of courage to do something like that because it, like you said, the natural course of things or the natural nature of us is to just kind of go on that path they've already set because there's a big obstacle, right? To like course correct like that. Though I will say that it is easier to do it at the beginning of your career than when you're in the middle or getting towards the end of it. So, yes, it was a big thing to be like, okay, I did all the things, I got all the papers, I got the this and the that, and now I'm in this position and I don't want to be here versus like, you're 10, 15 years into it and you're now like entrenched. And it's like, okay, now I've had a lifestyle that is, you know, based on this particular thing, and I have to completely do a 180 or a 360. I don't know what the degree will be, but you'll have to do some kind of pivot and it's harder. So, yes, it was a big move, but thankfully it was at a good point. You still have those things, right? I mean, those things aren't going to go away. Like, you still have those credentials. They're not going to go away.
Well, they
But
do. You
you're
don't
just not
keep
going to
them
use
up.
them. But what I'm saying is you could always go and get your, I mean, I don't know what it is, if it's CPA credentials or whatever, but I mean, you could go take the test again, right? I mean, it's not gonna like, you can always get back into it if you wanted to, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Whereas
100.
if you, I'm just saying, whereas if you had made the change before you finished, you wouldn't have that option. Not that you're gonna
Yeah,
use it, but I'm just saying you wouldn't have it.
100%. And I've been hearing this concept or phrase a lot lately called and they say burn the boats, right? So
Hmm.
when you decide to do something, you literally burn the boats like there's no other option. And that's kind of how I leaped into my next life. And even though I definitely made that decision when I was younger, I was already creating big girl responsibilities. I say that to the guys I date now. I'm like, listen, I have big girl responsibilities. This is a big girl life. Like you, we got
Are you
multiple
ready? Are you
mortgages,
ready for
right? Like,
this?
yes. So you have this lifestyle, exactly what you said. So I already had a lifestyle and I then needed to start making decisions. I'm like, oh, I'm going to quit my job and I have these properties, right? So, because I had already started doing those things once I decided I was going to go full time in my business. And so even though I didn't traditionally, from the sense, have like children or a husband, like I already had a ton of things that I needed to maintain and keep a certain way. And all of those things are just the facts of life, right? It's not good or bad things. It's just kind of like, hey, this amount is due every month to these people, and they don't care about what you trying to do and live your best life. Okay. So
Right,
gonna
exactly.
be, having to be responsible really early because when my mom passed away, like I have friends now who still live with their parents. And I
Really?
just wish I could live. I wish somebody would pay for me to live, please. And so being
Yeah. Then all the money could go towards your expert,
exactly,
your
but I didn't have that luxury. Once my mom passed away, there was no me going back home. I had to create a life and I had to find somewhere to live and I had to figure out things that a lot of people just don't have to figure out straight out of college. And they have that safety nest. So I 100% agree. And I'm going to add in there my part where I actually disagree. I don't think it's harder as time goes on. I think that we have a lot of sunk cost bias and we start to think things about ourselves. I honestly believe that transformation can happen in an instant. Even whatever it is that you're starting or whatever you're doing, if you were to go all in on it, you would be able to get results. It may not necessarily be the 100% result that you want, but you will get results. And then from those results, you will take different actions and create different results until you get to the result that you want. But the longer that you do not take action, the longer that the actions don't happen, that's what creates a lot of the complexity because you don't have the, like, you're not creating the experience and you're not being the person. And so you're practicing in action being someone that you don't want to be. And so that's what you're gaining the efficiencies in. And that's what you're gaining more and more confirmation bias in. And so it seems hard, but it's not hard. The steps are actually really simple. This is what I want to do. These are the steps that I have to take. This is me taking the steps. However, most people don't get to this is me taking the steps, even though they know the steps they have to take.
No, absolutely, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely I mean, I was only saying that because like because of that is essentially why, because it's harder to take the steps the longer you are in a situation. versus like at the very beginning, it's a little bit easier to take the steps at that point. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just saying that because I'll tell you, like, for example, in medicine, so this is my area, right? Like I went through burnout probably 8 years ago. And at that point, maybe it's probably actually more than that now, but like, this is like midpoint career. I've been practicing for already like 10 years or whatever. And you just get to that point where you're like, okay, well, what else can I do? I'm gonna just go and do this other thing. But then it's like you have at that point, you don't have another thing that's gonna be able to support your family the way that the thing that you're currently in does. And even if you go all in on something else, it just is not going to be the same. So that's what I'm saying. Like there are things like that that will stop you from moving into that other space full force. The more you're in a situation, the more you're in a career. And I absolutely agree. I mean, I feel like if you have no obligations, if you have no family, no nothing, it's absolutely super easy to do that. Like you can just do it on a dime. Like you don't have to worry about stuff like that. But then when you have other individuals that are involved, it becomes that much harder for you to make that big switch, and go into uncertainty. And it can pay off big time, but there's a sacrifice. Like there's like a bigger sacrifice than just yourself. Like if it's just you, whatever, you could do that. Like you could like eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and you could like live super lean and make your dream come true. But like when you got like other individuals involved, it's not the same. It's harder.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm
So,
saying.
yeah. And it's interesting. What you're saying is very interesting because, especially on the coaching side, I have clients from, let's say 30 years old, and my oldest client is 78 years old that I'm coaching. And so I literally hear everything from I'm too young to I'm too old, right? So there are insecurities and thoughts and everything at both sides of the spectrum. If you're listening to this and you have this thought, that it's harder for you to do it because all of these external circumstances, you have the family and you've created the life. And I'm not even just talking about your career. I'm just talking about you creating whatever result it is that you're trying to create in your life. And right now it may seem impossible or challenging. One of the things that I do with everything is separate facts from fiction. Okay. And so fiction is our version of the story, where if we were to present it in the court of law, it would not be credible. And so we spit out thoughts all day long that we accept as facts, and that the people around us also accept as facts, because that's just validation. Like we validate our friends and family and so on. And so when we say things like, oh, there's nothing out there that would be as good as what I'm doing now, and that would be impossible, like those aren't actually facts. Those are just your thoughts about your ability to perform, your ability to do the thing, or your capacity. Because there are so many ways to do anything, and there's really nothing new under the sun, unless you're like a mad scientist or something. But normally most of us are just trying to live a little bit better, right? We're not really trying to reinvent the world. And even if you are, that's perfectly possible as well, right? However, a lot of us are not like, oh my gosh, I want to create this new invention. Okay, so the innovation is not necessarily needed. It is the execution that's needed, right? There's already a strategy that you could probably follow to get to where you want to go. The challenge typically comes up in the execution of it. So when you go and do the thing, it feels very uncomfortable. Like you said, you may just have to sacrifice for a little while. And it is perfectly fine for you maybe to eat sardines, and you and your whole family are eating sardines for a whole year, right? And this is where you make decisions. And oftentimes we're making decisions from a short-term mindset, right? So what we think we're giving up right now, and most people don't actually look at the exchange on the other side, right? So it's just really about, this is what I think I need to sacrifice right now. And that's the word we're using, right? I would have to pay this, do this, spend this amount of time, like whatever your objection is to doing the very hard thing that's going to create the life that you want. It's not a sacrifice, it's an investment, because the other side is going to bring you an even better, bigger, and amazing return. So the sacrifice, like the part that you think that you're giving up right now, is just pain, right? So a lot of people just become adapted. They adopt or adapt to the pain of where they are now. They're kind of like, oh, well, I've been here for so long. That's what you were saying. I've been here for so long that it's gotten a little bit easier for me to not like it here. I've just been doing it every day. Of course you feel better. Of course you feel more comfortable. I had someone say to me the other day, she was like, it's not that bad. Even though the question she asked me was, how can she accept this opportunity that she had been waiting for, that now that she's in it, she feels like she can't even be comfortable in this opportunity. That was the question she posed. And I was like, well, before isn't really where you want it to be. And she was like, isn't that bad? No, it actually was. You just got used to traumatizing yourself. You got used to criticizing yourself. You got used to burning yourself out. Like, it became your way of life. And when you have habits, right? It's just habits and addictions, and we just succumb to them.
Yeah, I mean, transition is always hard for people. I mean, I went through a major transition. I mean, I was fine through it. Like, I did a lot of work during that time, but I'm just saying in general, people don't find it easy to do. Like, I am one of those people who makes decisions very quickly and is able to execute because that's what I do every single day. But that's not everybody. And I'm just saying that, the things that life brings makes it difficult for people to be able to do that, because not everybody can do that. That's all I was saying. I mean, I totally agree. I think that you could do it at any point. It doesn't matter. Like, if you really want to do the thing, it doesn't matter if you have 10 children, you can still do it. But it is definitely, it takes a lot more, I would say, and it takes a lot of introspection. It takes a lot of like personal work to be able to be at a point where you can do something like that, make a big pivot, and also make a drastic change where you're sitting in uncomfortable for long periods of time. People just don't like that, and it's not an easy thing to do. So I was just saying that, like, at the beginning of things, it's a little bit easier to do that than when you are further along in a situation, because you do get used to the pain and you accept it. And so for you to like just one day say, I'm going to make my life completely different, it may not happen on a dime. It may be something that takes a transformation that takes a while, like maybe 6 months, maybe a year, but it can happen. It just isn't going to happen with the same rapidity as it might happen at the very beginning of a situation. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, and I agree with exactly what I agree with what you're saying. And I think that when we're talking about transition, and I think that transition and transformation can be two totally different conversations, right? Because you can want to feel better or be more confident or just really enjoy your life a little bit more. And that just requires a change in thought or a change in how you're feeling and a change in perspective, versus a transition where you are literally going to start and make different decisions about the circumstances in your life. So you may say, hey, I want to get a divorce, or I want to get married, or I want to change my career, right? So those are transitions versus, hey, I'm going to just have a different experience, versus I'm going to have a totally different circumstance, right? So I'm going to change the circumstances of my life. So that's how I kind of think about it. And everything, especially when we're talking about new things, challenging things, big things, whatever it is, whether or not that's the transformation or the transition, you're going to go through multiple phases of it. And one of those phases is the river of misery. Where it is really, 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 really hard. And oftentimes when we go, and actually maybe what I was about to say is not really true, because I really don't think anybody now really expects to not feel discomfort when they go to do new things. I think that they just forget that it's going to happen. And so once they go to do the new things and they experience the discomfort, they experience the negative emotion, because they quote unquote were not expecting it, then they're not prepared, right? And so they're like, okay, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Versus actually, I knew this was going to happen because I'm doing something I've never done before. I have no idea what I'm doing, maybe, or maybe I know exactly what I'm doing. I just don't like doing it. And being able to feel that emotion and let that be with you as you're still doing the thing, and it can be perfectly fine. Oftentimes, when we have these negative emotions, we think something has gone wrong. But and all the thoughts that you're having a day and all the feelings that you're having a day, most of them are negative.
Yeah. You have to
And
literally force yourself to have positive thoughts. Like you have to continually affirm those things in your mind.
yes, you always need to be making decisions and reframing and just paying attention. I like to say to see your thoughts and not be your thoughts, because a lot of the discomfort comes in our own story, that story that we're telling ourselves, that fictional story narrative that's happening, where now a lot of judgment comes in and all of these other things that we actually presume to be outside of us as if these things are happening to us. But a lot of it is just us conceptualizing things in our brain and the way our brains work. And sometimes even the way that we catastrophize, your body has the same reaction to your thoughts as if it actually happened to you in real life. And so when you think, oh, this person thinks this about me, when you go execute on your idea, you're having the same visceral reaction in your body. You're having a chemical reaction in your body as if it happened to you. You feel like you might die. However, that's not actually what's happening. It's not the facts of the situation. And so it definitely takes a lot of awareness, like you were saying, learning how to manage your mental and emotional state. And those things take time, because right now you have a lot of time and practice. You may think that you have not learned how to do this very well, but you have a lot of time and practice believing and feeling the things that you actually don't want to create. And so you just need a little bit more practice. Those, I call it identity-based habits, feeling and thinking on purpose, like with intention, and being as proactive in those decisions and in those lifestyle habits as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. And you know, it's a funny thing because like I think people don't always want to do the work involved there because we grow up hearing a lot of things that are not necessarily positive. There's a lot of times when you hear the word no. I forgot what book I was reading. One of these self-help books. I forget who it was, but it might be actually Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, that I was reading. Anyway, she was saying in the book that we hear no so many times, like we hear no as we're growing up. It's constantly no, 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 no. And so you don't come out the womb knowing, understanding what that means. You know, you try to reach for the hot plate and you get your hand slapped and it's like no, or you try to jump off of something and you're told no, or you know, things that are dangerous, yes, but then there are other things that you're told no in, and so then you start assuming that you should just avoid risk, avoid things that potentially could allow for growth, and it's just a continual like auditory playback that you're having. And so it's like you said, you really do have to be intentional and you have to be very, very purposeful in what you tell yourself, in what is replayed in your thoughts, because it does really have a huge effect. I tell my children this, and we were talking about this the other day because we love to listen to and watch Kobe Bryant, and he was very, very wise in his words and his actions in pertaining to like a work ethic, in pertaining to becoming great at something, and he'd always say things like, he wasn't always good, which is expected, right? You don't expect someone who is the greatest of all time just like to be that at the very onset. It took time, work, effort, etc. And he said he would just lay in his bed and he would just envision himself as a Laker, as a youngster. He would envision himself as a Laker. He would envision himself, getting MVPs. He would envision himself getting having monster games. And he said that that visualization is what propelled him. I mean, yes, you have to put the work in. There's no question about that. But your mind is extremely powerful. And you mentioned that, something that people say to you or what you think someone's perception of you, it evokes a visceral response in you. And the same thing is true. If you're constantly visualizing yourself as being successful, walking across that stage, getting that award, getting that deal, getting those clients, whatever it is, if you're constantly visualizing yourself in that state and you're also doing the work towards it, it will happen. There's like no question that it will happen. But if we visualize ourselves as not attaining goals, as not being successful, then that too will happen. And so the mental playback is incredibly powerful. And I try to tell my children this. I try to tell them to record their voices and say the things that they want to realize and listen to that on a daily basis, because that is huge in molding, forging your future manifestations. Like, it's huge. So, when you said that, it really reminded me of that, because, you're right. What we think people are going to say about us, or what we think might be the outcome, which is, like you said, fiction and not actual fact, that thing is realized, whether it's realized as a visceral response or it's actually manifested, it will be realized somehow.
And that's one of the things that the methodology that I use with interior design and coaching really highlights, right? So the coaching side is more so about your interior, what's happening on the inside of you, what are the thoughts you're thinking and the emotions you're feeling that create the actions that you start to actualize in the real world, right? In the tangible world. So something's happening within you and you either do or don't do a thing in the physical world around you that will then create the result that you have, that you don't like, or the result that you do, that you desired and you do like. And the key word that you use that is probably one of my favorite words when we're talking about energy and emotions that you would want to have to take you through the thing come hell or high water when it gets very intense and uncomfortable is compelled. Right. So he was compelled to go all in and put himself in every situation of discomfort and feel all the feelings and feel all the injuries and cry all the tears and bleed all the blood to get him to his desired destination, no matter what. And he decided that way far in advance. Like, he made a decision and kept going until he actualized exactly what he intended to. And compelled feels a little bit different than a lot of other emotions we try to take action out of. For example, like excited. People, and a lot of times we don't know what emotions are and we can't describe them and we don't have the words. And so because of that, we also don't know how to process them or deal with them. And oftentimes I get people who are like, oh, I want to do this thing because I'm excited, or if I did this, I would be excited. And that doesn't create enough resilience for you in discomfort, right? If your only outcome, how your life would change, is excitement, that's not going to create enough. You're going to need a little bit more than that, right? You're going to need a lot more than an excitement to get you through the discomfort, because the discomfort feels so real. Exactly what you were saying. Like, the discomfort is real. It's your actual experience. And in that discomfort, you have to be able to move through it. And there's no other way.
No, this is very true. And yeah, it's a lesson that it's not obvious. It's not an obvious lesson. So yeah, no, I mean, it's good. I mean, I love that you're doing that in your coaching, because I feel like that's something that people don't look at. That's not the first motion, or the first step when they're about to do something. That's not what they think to do. They don't think to look inside of their minds or even their thoughts to really see, we're like, well, what is it that's actually holding me back? Oh, it's me. I'm holding me back. Like that's it, you know. So
Yeah.
no, I love that you do that.
Yes,
I love
actually,
that you call it interior work.
yes.
Yeah.
Most people look outside of themselves, right? So whatever's wrong or whatever happening with them that feels wrong typically has some type of external cause in our brains, right? We're like, well, if this was just, he just acted this way, or if my manager would just do blah, 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 or just listen to me, or whatever it is that statement that has someone else impacting you, or something else impacting you. That's a lot. That's where a lot of us start, right? We don't necessarily learn the word is responsibility, but the ability to, and I define that as your ability to respond. And so if the answer to what's wrong, like what would have to change, lies outside of you, then you cannot respond effectively to create a different result, right? You have to be the only one that can respond to a situation if you want that situation to change, because you can't control anything that anybody else does. And I love this. I love that you brought Kobe to the table, because listen, I'm like the girliest girl in the world, and I would never, ever, ever be having this conversation. So I love that it's taking me out of my comfort zone of how I would normally talk about things. But you made me think about the book Outlier. And in
Oh,
that book Outlier,
yes.
they introduced the concept of
Malcolm.
the 2,000 hours, right?
Yeah.
And when I'm thinking, or when I'm working with my clients and designing their life, we're talking about how you are navigating your entire world, not just one area of it, and how that all should align to really feel good with you. And in detail, that comes down to your decision making. And so Kobe was making decisions from a very young age, and those decisions sounded and looked like, who do I need to be in this room? And how do I need to spend my time in order to develop a certain skill set? And so a lot of us are very reactive in our decision making. We are not intentionally making decisions with that constant vision in mind, right? We're not constantly referring back to, hey, this is what I said I want to do. Is this in line? Did I do this? Evaluating. We don't come back and evaluate. We barely take action most of the time. And all of that is very essential to
Oh,
that
yes.
consistency that's needed to take you through the fire. And so when you think about the hours these really great athletes spend, and what time they wake up in the morning, and the routines they create for themselves, and the lifestyle decisions that they have, and how they invest in themselves, tens and thousands of dollars for the best of everything. I mean, that's the number one industry with coaches, right?
Oh,
Athletes.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when we start to talk about different industries and different areas of our life, we don't think about investing in ourselves in the same way. Well, so we'll invest in education up until a certain degree, and then we're like out in the world, and we don't have anyone support system that doesn't validate us. So it doesn't validate the story where you're the main character and the world revolves around you and everything you say is true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
And so
That-
if you don't have any checks and balances, everything's fraud. And that's my accountant in me, right? There's no checks and balances here. This is all just being what's the word? This is all misleading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing here is credible at all. It's all being misstated. That's the word we use in accounting. This is a misstatement. And
Yeah.
so when we talk about, I call it embodiment, like this is literally how, and this, we're not talking about perfection. Of course, you don't have to spend 100% of your time, your money, and so on, trying to be this person, right? But you want to do it as often as possible, even 70%, 80%, the Pareto principle, right? If you just were able to, in full awareness, just check in. Okay, I'm about to do this next thing. Let me check in. Is this exactly what I said I was going to do? Or in hindsight, right? Because I feel like even in day to day, if you're doing it at the end of the day, that's the hindsight of your day. The next day, you can be a different person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so one of the ways that I actually run my business is on a 12-week year concept. And so every time we are about to start a new 12-week year, I go back and reread the book. And every time you reread something, you get a new
New
jewel or gem
nugget.
out of
Mhm.
it. And when I reread it this time, I came back to my evaluation. And so even though I've been using this system for a couple of years now, when I read it this time, I realized, wow, you know what? I'm not evaluating as often as I should. So maybe instead of this just being evaluated at the end of the week, we need to literally be evaluating day by day. Like I need to evaluate in the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And just that small thing, which probably is taking me a total of 30 minutes, right? 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night, has kept us so on track with the tactics and the execution that we're supposed to be making. And a
Wow.
day could have made a difference, right? So I'm on Friday morning. I'm like, wait a minute. There's like 5 things that are not checked. How can we get them done right now? Like we literally have a whole work day. As opposed to coming back on Monday and saying, oh, how did we do this week? Like, no, we actually still have more than enough time. And oftentimes we come to our approach is we don't have enough. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough energy. We don't have enough money. And that is not a fact. Oftentimes when I go and look at somebody tells me they don't have any of the above that I just mentioned in order
Right.
to be to do what they want to do, not need to do what they want to do with their life. When I go and check the math, because it's always about the math, when I go and check your time, money, and energy, all of it's in confusion, right? It's spiraling somewhere, it's telling a story. And it's keeping you very occupied. It's keeping you tied up. It's keeping you busy. And I call it the clutter, right? And so that clutter is the like puts you in the blender. And of course, you don't know here from there when you have so much of your resource, so much of your capacity and energy tied up in things that create what you don't want.
Yeah. No, I could totally see that. No, these are definitely good stuff. Good stuff. And so, we have had a really awesome conversation, but we did not talk about the glasses.
Oh my gosh, glasses. But it's all in this conversation. And so I am a life coach, people, but I am not perfect at all. And every single day, I am also working towards the woman that I want to be. And I feel fear all the time in all the places. And I'm doing some really big things now, and I feel fear about them. So the glasses actually are like my artifact. And so I put them on when I need to be present and be the person that creates the life that that I want to have.
Nice.
So
Nice.
these glasses activate Britney that's going to have this really fabulous, amazing, beautifully designed life versus the Britney who's like, so much stuff happened to me today. It's 7:45 p.m. I really wish I did not schedule this at this time, right? That was the Britney before I put these glasses on.
Okay. I love it. I love
And
it.
then when Britney put her glasses on, it was go time.
Yeah. I
And
love
that's
that. Oh, that's great. That's
it.
that's perfect. That is amazing. Yeah. And I mean, if you're listening and you're unable to see it, the glasses are amazing. They are, I can't even describe the shape. They're like a rectangular shape, but they have like a curved top to them, and the edges are rounded. And it has is that like a jungle print or
Yes, it
yeah,
is. I
but
am
it has the
like,
sky, it has like green from the trees, it has some bright flowers on it. They're amazing. They're absolutely
thank
amazing.
you.
Yeah. So hopefully I did okay describing it.
Yes, you
Yeah.
were great.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we are at that point in our show where we do our tradition. Are you ready? It's a
I'm
fill in the
ready.
blank. Okay,
And
awesome.
you know what's funny? I did not, I looked at the questions. I was like, I'm not going to come up with answers. So we are just going to go with it.
That's perfect. I actually prefer that actually. So, okay. So the first one is if I am fearless, I will.
If I am fearless, I will do the impossible. And so many things sometimes feel impossible. It may not feel impossible to everybody in the world, but I feel like, all of our experiences are just so nuanced. And the thing that could be super easy for you is super challenging for someone else. And recently, during the holidays, when I was at a networking event, they asked a question and they were like, if you could get anything from Santa this year, what would it be? And because we were playing, I said an answer I would have never wrote down anywhere. And I said, I want a TV show. And after it came out of my mouth, I felt myself gag a little, like, what? I felt that emotion, like that reaction in my body. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about, a TV show? Like, what's happening here? Who do you think you're in? All of that self-talk that starts happening. And then when I thought about it the next day again, I was like, wait a minute. Why wouldn't I put a TV show down on my plan?
Yeah.
So
Well, you have the personality for one, so I think it would work out great.
thank you. Can you imagine me? I mean, like literally, it would be like Ivania fix my life, but we'd be fixing their life and their homes. It would be
There you
so
go.
fabulous.
I think that'd be great. I think it's a lovely idea. You should definitely do that. Definitely. So the next one is to me, fearless freedom means.
To me, fearless freedom means presence. I don't necessarily think that you will ever be without fear. I just really think that tapping into the moment, into that presence and awareness we were talking about earlier, will get you everywhere you need to go, even if you don't have the map or the strategy. And that's the freedom to have a different experience, to be something different, to do something different. It's just really amazing. It's like the most liberating thing ever, to say yes to yourself. I didn't touch on that earlier, but I love what you were saying about, us just being told no so much from a very early age, and we continue to tell ourselves no. We continue to be in denial and to deny ourselves. And what if you just tell yourself yes today?
Yeah,
Today.
it would look different. It would look very different.
And that's the freedom. And in that moment is a little bit less fear, right? Because you're not the one saying no.
And
And
you get
so
the
if
power back.
yes, now you have the ability to respond. Now you're responsible for the result.
No, I love it. I think that's great. And then the last one is my battle cry is.
Okay, I'm stealing this from a
Yeah.
client, actually. I have a really fabulous client who's a speaker who also has really fabulous glasses. Shout out to Kat. And I'm sure we've read the same books. And her signature on her email just captivated me. And it reads, resentment is your superpower. And I could not stop thinking about this woman's signature. Like I literally was like dreaming about it. And I was like, why does this resonate so much with me? And I think it's because we always know when it's time to make a different decision. And especially for women, we have tons of resentment under the surface, all right? Because we're just making so many decisions for so many other people and doing so much for so many other people. And the self-sacrifice is just at an all-time high. And that resentment creeps in every time. It's a very sneaky feeling, but you always have it. Like, when you don't feel good about something. And so now, now I have the word to identify what it is. And anytime
Right.
I feel that resentment, I make a different decision. It could be in the moment or it can be in hindsight. But as soon as I feel resentment, I go change my contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say no, right? Or I say yes. Um, and so I love that for all of you, because I love it for me. So I definitely love it for all of you. Use that. When you feel resentment, just make a different decision. You don't have to know how it's going to turn, just a different decision. Do it differently.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's good. That's like right on the money right there.
I love that so
Awesome.
much.
Yeah. No, she's onto something. So just tell us one more time how everyone can get in contact with you.
All right. So the best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. I am Britney Glass on LinkedIn. Within my LinkedIn and in my community, I host a monthly workshop. If you go and follow me on LinkedIn, you will see the promotion for it. But if you were listening to this and you're a woman who wants to make a different decision right now and you want to design your life and really have a life that you love and that supports you in everything that you're working towards, I definitely invite you to book a call with me. I call it my Clear Your Clutter session. Do we have the link for that? I'm not sure.
I would say it online here. I would say it so that people
Okay.
can like have it. I mean, I'm sure it'll be in the show notes, but if they're listening, they're not gonna be able to, but they could always go back and write it down. You know what I mean?
Okay. How about this? If you're listening and you are ready to say yes to yourself right now and make a different decision, just send me a DM that says clutter anywhere
Okay.
on the end.
All right. And then I just
I'm not,
want to make sure people are aware of how you spell Brittany. It's
yes,
Britney.
yes, it is. And glass like the glass you drink out of.
Perfect.
Well, thank you
Perfect.
so much. It was a
Yeah,
pleasure.
nah, thanks for coming on here. We appreciate your time and sharing and your vulnerability and all of the pearls that you dropped. We appreciate all of that.
Thank you so much. It was such an engaging conversation. I love everything you brought to the table as well. And now I'm about to go and watch some Kobe documentaries or something so I can get
Oh,
all
yeah.
that with them. So thank you for that.
Yes, no worries.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Fearless Freedom with Dr. G. Again, I'm Dr. G. And if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe so that you can get notified of when the next episode is going to be. And also, I'll catch you next time. Have a great one. Be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.